Hey everyone, we're sending this video message out here to just ask that you would join us in prayer as we close out the year, and especially join us in prayer for a vision that God has given us for how to start 2017. You know, when Patty and I first moved out here about 18 months ago, which just seems crazy now that it's already been that long, we were immediately struck by the sheer size of the task of bringing the gospel to the Bay Area. You know, in the Bay Area, there's about 9 counties. You see them on this map here behind me. And there's about 8 million people who live in those 9 counties. And if you ask them, about 7% will say that they're following Jesus. And man, that's just a small number. And we want to see that get bigger. And we thought, well, you know, what about if we were to double that? What if we asked God to double the number of people following Jesus in the Bay Area from 7% up to 15%? So that's plus 8%. And when we did the math, we thought, wow, 8% of 8 million, that's 640,000 new Christians. That's like 10,000 new churches. And when we thought about just the idea of coming out here to start a single church, that just paled in comparison to the size of the need. And yet we thought to ourselves, well, when we look in the history of the church, we saw that great movements of God had happened really at the very beginning. When you start in the Gospels and move into the book of Acts, we see millions of people coming to follow Jesus and thousands of churches starting all over the Mediterranean basin. And then even today in places like India and China and Nepal, stories of millions of people coming to be followers of Christ and forming themselves in together into hundreds of thousands of churches. And so we started to ask ourselves, well, is God done with that kind of work? Or could we ask him if he would do something similar in the Bay Area? Now, when you think about, making disciples and starting churches on such a scale, the first thing that you really have to examine is, what do we even mean by this word church? You know, in our modern Western American context, that's sort of come to mean a dedicated building and lots of seats and a band and things like that. And that's a great way to do church, but it turns out it's not the only way. In fact, when the thing just whole got started, and when we look at countries around the world today, there's also simple ways to do it. Just meeting in people's homes or house to house, meeting in coffee shops, meeting outside in parks. And when you start to think about a simple way to do church, in addition to the ways we've traditionally seen here, all of a sudden you start to see how God could move in this way. And so that's what we're asking you to join us to do, is to close out 2016 with a vision for 2017. And when we asked God what that vision might be, and we thought about, how do you break this task down into a more manageable size? How do you take these 9 counties and these 8 million people and really just come at that at all? Well, the first thing we said is, okay, how many zip codes are there? And it turns out there's 500 zip codes in the Bay Area. And that got us to thinking, what if we ask God to start a movement to see disciple making and church planting and a new congregation formed in every one of those 500 zip codes, 500 new churches? And surely we could imagine that each church would baptize at least 10 people. Patty and I have been doing this just for a little over a year, and we've gotten to 7 already, and we're just rookies. So what if we had 500 new churches birthed by God, and each church baptized at least 10 people? That would be 5,000 baptisms. And what if we asked God to do all of this in 5 years? 500 new congregations with 5,000 baptisms in the next 5 years. And as we thought about that, we thought, boy, that is something to be excited about. But it's also something we need to be in prayer about. And we need to just bring all of the people who've been supporting us together and just ask God, just petition God that he would make this vision a reality. And so that's what we're going to do. Starting tomorrow, we're going to start 50 days of prayer, just to continue the whole 5 thing. 50 days of prayer, that God would start a movement where we would see 500 new churches, 1 per zip code, and 5,000 baptisms over the next 5 years. And if we start tomorrow, in 50 days, it'll be January 1st. And that's where we're going to kind of ask God if we'd start the clock ticking then. And so be looking in your emails and be looking on Facebook, because we're going to do that. We're going to post a verse that we've been praying over, maybe a whole passage. And we've even asked the people who have already just been seeing God move in this way here in the Bay Area to join us, people who have come to know Jesus because of the work that we're doing, other people who are excited about this vision as well. And so when you look, you'll see a Bible verse or a passage and then a little picture of that person, maybe a little bit about them and how Jesus has changed their life forever. So be looking for that. And we invite you to just pray with us that God would do this movement. It's exciting, and we are just so glad to have your support in getting there. God bless you, everybody. Peace.